So, welcome everybody to us. We are here to inform you about one of Japan's famous fermented food, miso. This presentation is hosted by me, Francis Amadeo Junianto, and my other two friends, Muhammad Iqbal and Rivaldo Arya Wardana. I hope you enjoy. See ya. So, this is the outline of our presentation. First, we have the definition of miso, the history of miso, the characteristic, the production process, and lastly, the quality control of miso production.
What is miso? Miso is a fermented soybean paste from Japan used as a seasoning through Asian cuisine. Miso soup may be its most familiar application, but it makes an appearance in everything from salt dressing to pickles and marinades. It's even one of the crucial components of soy sauce. The story of miso can be traced to its ancient Chinese counterpart, soybean jam, one variation in genre of thick paste known as jam, and miso has been part of the history of the Japanese people for more than 1,300 years. Next is the history of miso. In Heian period, the character for miso first appeared in the literature during the Heian period. In this period, miso is a luxury item. It was also used to pay the salaries of the elite and as a gift. And the next is Kamakura period. This period is the emergence of miso soup. Buddhist monks who came to Japan from China during the Kamakura period brought suribachi, mortars with them. And this is how miso started to be used in miso soup. The next is Muromachi period. This is the era where the development of miso cooking, because the production of soybean increased during the Muromachi period. Even common people began using miso. The next one is Sengoku Period. Miso began using as a military food. Miso was used as a seasoning as well as a valuable source of protein because it could be preserved and easily carried around in a dried or grilled state. The next one is Edo Period. In this period, many restaurants opened with this using miso and many commoners started to eat miso soup and miso paste until it became a familiar food. The next one is Showa Period. This is the era where the development of miso production using technology began. The characteristic of miso. Miso have a very specific flavor. Each type of miso has its own characteristic flavor, and it will add a fifth taste that we know as umami. Miso is rich in essential nutrients such as protein, iron, magnesium, manganese, zinc, several B vitamin, and vitamin K. It also provides health beneficial bacteria that help improve our gut health. Although it contains a lot of nutrients, miso also contains a lot of salt, so it shouldn't be used excessively. There are countless different varieties of miso. The examples are white miso, yellow miso, red miso, and many more.
So, let's move on to the miso production process. Miso are made by fermenting mixture between soybeans and koji. Koji itself can be made by fermenting rice or either barley. Soybeans and rice or barley are soaked overnight for starch gelatinization. Soybeans are cooked until softened by heating it using an autoclave or a continuous soybean cooker. Rice or barley are cooked using an industrial rice steamer by steaming. To make the koji, cooked rice are cooled, then the koji starter that contains the Aspergillus oryzae spores are added. Koji fermentation process takes about 40 until 48 hours inside the koji room to promote mold's growth. Both cooked soybeans and koji are mixed in the mash tank. Then water and salt are added. Lactic acid bacteria and yeast are added to the mixture for the fermentation process. The soybean and koji mixture are fermented and aged for about 1 until 3 months. During aging, miso are moved to a different tank to introduce some oxygen that promote yeast growth. After fermentation, the miso are mashed, blended, and mixed. Then alcohol is added to stop yeast growth. Then the miso is pasteurized to kill all the microbes. Each ingredient that contains natural enzymes and substances gives different characteristics to the miso. Koji that contains the Aspergillus oryzae produce enzymes such as amylase, protease, and lipase. Amylase breaks starch that contains in the rice or barley into sugars, such as maltose and glucose. Those sugars gives miso its sweet flavor. Those sugars were converted by the lactic acid bacteria into lactic acid and acetic acid that inhibits contamination. Those natural acids also gives a tartness flavor to the miso. Yeast also convert those sugars into alcohol that gives miso its fruity flavors and unique aromas. Protease convert protein into amino acids. Amino acids such as glutamic enhance the flavor of the miso. Melanin adds color to the miso. Natural pigments contained in soybeans also gives color to the miso. Lipase breaks down natural oil from soybeans into fatty acids and esters. Esters also gives an aromatic characteristic to the miso. Salt added during mixing gives a salty flavor into the miso and inhibits contamination. Water added during mixing softens the texture of the miso.
Quality control of miso production. The first one is ingredient selection. There are several miso products which differ in the type of koji used for the fermentation. Rice koji is used to make rice miso, barley koji to make barley miso, and soybean koji to make soybean miso. A high ratio of rice or barley to soybean results in a more likely, colored, and sweeter miso. In conjunction with the ratio of rice or barley to soybean, the hydrolysis of starch to maltose and glucose is essential to miso production. The type of koji starter and whether rice or barley is used are important components in the biochemical process responsible for the flavor characteristic of the final products. The next is water content and salt content. In the water content, the soybean is washed and soaked in water. Soaking process is used to make soybean, barley, or rice is soaked in steam process. The salt content of miso is usually about 10% or more by weight. It should be maintained because high concentration of salt could inhibit the growth of the molds, especially if molds are not halophile microbes. Recent research has succeeded in depressing the salt content by adding alcohol or extra yeast to suppress undesirable white fermentation. Next is the fermentation period. The fermentation period for high wheat or barley miso is usually shorter than for miso with greater soybean content. Soybean miso has the longest fermentation period, taking from 1 to 2 years to produce an acceptable flavor. Also, in another type of miso, it depends on what characteristic of miso we want. You can see in the table that Swedish miso is processed with the 4.5% salt weight of bean plus koji and 2 until 3 weeks of fermentation time. The salty one is processed with 16% salt weight of bean plus koji and 24 months of fermentation time.
This is the reference that we use. Lastly, we want to say thank you for watching our presentation. Please leave a like to our video and subscribe to our channel. If there's something you want to ask, please leave a comment down below. Thank you.